It was a chilly Wednesday morning, and the office was already buzzing when it happened. Maria, the quiet, hard-working single mom who had been with the company for years, was called into Mr. Grant's office. We all knew what that meant. Grant rarely called anyone into his office unless it was bad news. Maria was one of the most dedicated people I'd ever met. She was the kind of person who never complained, no matter how hard things got. She stayed late when needed, always did her best, and never let the stress show, even though everyone knew she had so much on her plate. When she walked out of Grant's office, her face was pale. She held her purse tightly, her shoulders tense as if trying to hold herself together. "What happened?" someone whispered. Maria's voice was quiet but firm. "I've been let go," she said. The room went silent. She looked around at all of us and gave a weak smile. "It's okay. I'll figure something out. I always do." Mr. Grant didn't even come out to explain or address the team. Typical. He was known for being ruthless and cold, only focused on profits. He didn't care that Maria had a young son to support or that she had given so much to the company. Maria was gone by the end of the day, and the office felt emptier without her. I couldn't stop thinking about how unfair it was. She had been one of the best employees, and yet, because the company was cutting costs, she was the one who had to go. I remember overhearing her once, talking about her son, Ethan. He was her whole world. She worked long hours to give him a good life, even though she barely had time for herself. She'd often tell us stories about how proud she was of him, how smart he was, how he wanted to go to college, and how determined she was to make it happen. A few weeks passed, and I heard through a mutual friend that Maria was struggling. She was picking up shifts at a diner and doing freelance work just to make ends meet. Ethan, who was still in school, had picked up a part-time job to help out. It broke my heart. Months later, an email landed in our inboxes. "Mandatory meeting, major announcement." It was from Mr. Grant, and the tone was urgent. Everyone was on edge, wondering if it meant layoffs or some other bad news. We gathered in the conference room, waiting for Grant to arrive. When he finally walked in, he was unusually fidgety. He cleared his throat and said, "As of today, the company has been sold to a new owner. They will be taking over immediately." The room erupted in whispers. Sold? Who was the new owner? Before Grant could say more, the door opened, and in walked a young man in his early 20s. He was tall, well-dressed, and confident. Something about him felt familiar, but I couldn't place it. Then he smiled, and I froze. It was Ethan, Maria's son. Ethan walked to the front of the room, shaking hands with the board members as if he'd done it 1,000 times before. He turned to face us, his expression calm but determined. "Good afternoon, everyone," he began. "My name is Ethan, and as of today, I am the new owner of this company." The room was dead silent. Even Grant looked stunned. Ethan continued, "This company means a lot to me, not because of its profits or reputation, but because my mother worked here for years. She poured her heart and soul into this place, even when it didn't treat her fairly." His eyes landed on Grant, and you could feel the weight of his words. "My mother raised me on her own," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "She worked here tirelessly to provide for me, to give me a better life. And when she was let go without warning, it broke my heart. But it also motivated me." He paused, letting his words sink in. "I spent months working on a business idea, finding investors, and building something of my own, and when the opportunity came to buy this company, I didn't hesitate." Grant, who had been silent the entire time, finally spoke up. "Ethan, I didn't know." Ethan cut him off. "You didn't know because you didn't care. You never cared about the people who worked for you. You cared about profits and control, but that changes now." He turned to the rest of us. "From this day forward, this company will prioritize its people. No one will ever be treated the way my mother was. This isn't just a business, it's a community, and we'll treat it that way." The room erupted in applause. People were smiling, nodding, some even tearing up. For the first time in years, It felt like things were about to get better. As we filed out of the room, I saw Ethan step aside to take a phone call. I couldn't hear much, but I caught the words Mom, and I did it. The look on his face was one of pure joy and pride. Maria had raised an incredible son, and now, thanks to him, her legacy would live on in the very company that had once let her go. Sometimes, life has a way of coming full circle.